Ever since Tucker did his interview with Nick Fuentes about 2 weeks ago, give or take, I think it's a little less than 2 weeks actually. Everybody's been screaming about Tucker one way or the other, and a few other people. As we know, it's sort of exploded into the internet and X and everywhere else. And there's been a lot of accusations about Tucker. Is he anti-Semitic? Is he not anti-Semitic? And then, of course, you have Ben Shapiro and you have Candace and Megyn Kelly, all these people either defending him or accusing him. And I thought we would take a look today at what Tucker has been saying and how he's not the same Tucker that we knew from Fox or CNN or MSNBC years ago. He's just a completely different guy from who we know years ago. And in fact, I think just in the last 2 years since the war started in Gaza, he's not the same guy. And I do think that he's become anti-Semitic, and I'll show you why. But I'm not going to just let my opinion dominate here. We're gonna take a look at a few people and a few instances and what things he said, and we'll go from there. So first, I wanted to just show you the Tucker that goes back a couple of years from when the war started, and this is a video.
I think U.S. aid, military aid to Israel, and the implied security guarantees, some explicit, but many implied security guarantees of the United States to Israel, probably haven't helped Israel that much long term. You know, it's a rich country with a highly capable population.
Rich country.
Like every other country, it's probably best if it makes its decisions based on what it can do by itself. Israel cannot exist without being propped up by the United States. Its nuclear program came from the United States. Its weapons come from the United States. Its economy is supported by the United States. That country couldn't exist without, not for a week, without U.S. backing. I think U.S. aid, military aid.
We know that's not true. And the only U.S. backing that Israel is getting is military. It's not, certainly not for its own economy, certainly not for its own world. Anyway, that was Tucker's views and his changing views just over the last couple of years. Then we go on, and this is during his interview, and I'm just going to show you a really short part of this with Nick Fuentes, and it's not about Nick here, it's about something that he said that I wanted to help define this. And let's go here, and it's just a short clip.
Is not inherited. Blood guilt is bad. One of the reasons that I'm mad about Gaza is because the Israeli position is everyone who lives in Gaza is a terrorist because of how they were born, including the women and the children. That's not a Western view. That's an Eastern view. That's a non-Christian. That's totally incompatible with Christianity and Western civilization. They say, oh, we're the defenders of Western civilization. Not with that attitude. You're not. Collective punishment is the enemy of Western civilization.
Yeah.
And so I hate that attitude. It's genocidal. The current claims that I'm a cancer, you know, from Ben Shapiro, whatever, we need to be excised from the body of conservatism is a genocidal position that it basically encourages violence, as they well know. The whole thing I hate. Mm-hmm.
So there you have Tucker, completely unable to be self-aware whatsoever that Ben is joining this genocidal, conversation because he's angry at Tucker for becoming anti-Semitic. He's angry at Tucker for his positions. He's angry at Tucker for what seems to be bait and switch, which he's absolutely doing, or plausible deniability, where he just says, gee, tell me what you think. And then he nods ahead and somebody says something pretty awful and he just lets it go, which is really acquiescence and approval when you don't speak up against it. And this is what Ben's angry about. But Tucker just thinks it's, just like everything else, and it's just a group think, and he's not responsible for any of this whatsoever, which we all know is not true whatsoever. There is a little bit of pushback here, and this is one guy who's sorry. This is Dov Heckind, and he does a pretty good job of explaining what we're upset with Tucker. Let's watch.
Jews taking direct orders from Israel. This is what Tucker Carlson is very, very upset at. Tucker Carlson, you are entitled to your positions on the United States and Iran, and so on and so forth. You're even entitled to have anti-Semites on your show and Holocaust deniers on your show. But it is precisely the language that you have used about creepy people taking orders, the Jews, the power, they control things. That is precisely why many of us are critical of you. You can be an isolationist. That does not make you an anti-Semite. No problem. But it is the creepy Jews, Israeli government. Who exactly is that? They are controlling things. They are attacking you. God, you give me the creeps. You are really good and really, really dangerous.
Exactly. And this is the problem that we're facing. And this is what Ben Shapiro finally has come out and has been explaining lately, because he is dangerous and he is creepy. I read this the other day from on X, and I just thought this was interesting. And he had mentioned something that I had also mentioned that sort of escaped everybody. And I'm going to read this to you real quick. The scam of Tucker Carlson and others is to suggest that they are upset about is that the U.S. sends taxpayer funds to foreign nations, which Israel simply buys weapons from the U.S. and the U.S. finances it, and that's about $3 billion a year. It's they're not taking our money to pay their electricity bill. Reasonable people can disagree about this question, though it is strange that Israel gets singled out, and it never gets mentioned that this is essentially a subsidy to U.S. weapons manufacturers. Israel is required to spend the money on U.S. weapons, nor is anything ever mentioned about possible benefits from the U.S. military cooperation. Maybe those are worthwhile, maybe not, and maybe the amount never gets mentioned, a little under $4 billion a year. But still, thinking that that spending is a waste of U.S. taxpayer money or endangers Americans more than helps us is a serious question worth discussing. But it's not what he's discussing. It's not what he's talking about. It doesn't make you anti-Semitic. What makes you anti-Semitic is only mentioning Israel and then lying about the war in Gaza or Israel's attitudes alongside the criticism of foreign aid. When Carlson says Israel considers all the Gazans terrorists or supporting Jews killing people as power trip, he's lying in a way that demonizes Israel and supporters of Israel and justifies violence against him. And then he was talking about that what Ben was doing was encouraging violence. No, Tucker, that's what you're doing. This is all in spite of his sanctimonious preaching about treating people as individuals. So when he says, oh, shucks, manner, that he knows he's not anti-Semitic, he's either lying or remarkably unaware, unself-aware, which is absolutely true. We're going to come back to that one. I want to skip over to this one. And this is a video from Dinesh D'Souza, who's actually been very critical lately of Tucker, very critical. And he's finding Tucker to have shifted quite a bit, as my point is, and is holding Tucker feet to the fire about really becoming very anti-Semitic. And he's calling him out. And I think this video really shows.
With regard to Tucker, the simple question is, are his positions, yes or no, clearly anti-Semitic? So here we cannot engage in generalities. We have to sort of ask ourselves simple questions. And so I'm going to give you a test right now looking at some of these positions, and you can decide whether you think they're anti-Semitic, yes or no. I'll tell you what I think. Here's number one. Christian Zionism is a heresy that makes people into supporters of Israel, makes Christians into supporters of Israel, and those who believe this heresy are more detestable to Tucker than any other group. So in other words, this is so detestable because it's making Christians into Zionists. Is this anti-Semitic, yes or no? I say yes. Number two, Hamas is not a terrorist group. Hamas rather is a political movement. Political movement means will be similar to, for example, the Labour Party in Great Britain, be similar to the Democratic Party or the Republican Party or the Libertarian Party. It's a political movement. By contrast, the IDF are the real terrorists because they target civilians. They deserve to be a terrorist group. So is this anti-Semitic? Yes or no? Is this applying a standard to Israel and the Jews that it doesn't apply to anyone else? I say yes. Number 3, the US should have allied with Hitler in World War II. Despite what Hitler was doing before the war to the Jews, despite of what he was doing to the Jews that we know about now, with all that we know now, we still think that instead of allying with Russia to stop the Nazis and then initiate the Cold War to take on the Soviet Union, we should have taken Hitler's side. Now, Tucker's never openly defended this, but he had a guest on who argued this, and Tucker was, again, it's very interesting. I've never thought of it that way. These ideas have been suppressed for decades. Is this an anti-Semitic point of view given what we know about Hitler and the Jews? I say yes. Number, 4 or 5? Sharia law is not really that bad because it creates an orderly society. Jewish influence on the US is far more dangerous than Islamic infiltration, including all the stuff that is done by Qatar, including efforts to bring Sharia to America. Sharia is nothing more than creating an orderly society. By the way, no mention of the fact that if you're a Muslim under Sharia and you leave Islam, you can be killed. It's actually right that you be killed, and someone can put a fatwa urging random Muslims to approach you, stab you, and murder you. No mention of any of this. Is this view anti-Semitic, yes or no? I say yes. Number 5 or number 6, the elected prime minister of Israel, Netanyahu, is, quote, completely evil, and he should be removed from power, even though he's in a parliamentary democracy and he has wartime support from Jews of both parties. Somehow, externally, he should be removed because he is, quote, completely evil, something that, by the way, Tucker won't even say about the radical Muslims. Is this anti-Semitic, yes or no? I say yes. When I first came to America around 1980, I had 500.
So there you go. I think he does a really good job of just laying out, point after point. And I'm sure Tucker would say, well, that's not anti-Semitic, because he would be pulling his plausible deniability. I just had them on. I just wanted to hear their viewpoints. I wasn't in favor of that. And that's what he does. The problem is that all of this stuff is just on the line. Then we had Dinesh on, he was on InfoWars. Alex Jones is not my cup of tea whatsoever, but I found this, and again, Dinesh does a good job here. I'm not going to play the whole thing here. This is just interesting because he does, again, talk about some of these items.
Yeah, I don't.
Boy, I hope we don't wind up with that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that, Sharia law is obviously just a punchline. I don't know that too many people actually believe in the reality of that. And sure, like I said, I'm a lawyer. I actually studied legal philosophy. Sharia is not that different from a code, the Anglo-Saxon common law, Anglo-American common law, derives ultimately from religious authorities.
Yeah, religious authority, but we stone women to death, throw gays off buildings. So I hadn't seen that clip. I get it. I've had those talks with Tucker. He's saying.
Anyway, there you have that. There's no question that Tucker keeps twisting and turning. Now, I want to share this one with you. I'm sorry I didn't post that page until about halfway through. I forgot to hit the button. And this is from Tucker in his own words, and this is very recently. This was at Charlie Kirk's funeral that he spoke, and he said probably the biggest blood libel that Christians ever say against Jews. And he said it to this huge crowd, and he doesn't think it's anti-Semitic, which of course we know as Jews that it is. And his unawareness is just incredible. What he says here is just every Jew.
So it's about 2,000 years ago in Jerusalem, and Jesus shows up and he starts talking about the people in power, and he starts doing the worst thing that you can do, which is telling the truth about people, and they hate it, and they just go bonkers. They hate it, and they become obsessed with making him stop. This guy's got to stop talking. We've got to shut this guy up. And I can just sort of picture the scene in a lamplit room with a bunch of guys sitting around eating hummus, thinking about what do we do about this guy telling the truth about us? We must make him stop talking. And there's always one guy with the bright idea, and I can just hear him say, I've got an idea, why don't we just kill him? That'll shut him up. That'll fix the problem. It doesn't work that way. It doesn't work that way. Everything is inverted.
So there you go. The blood libel of the hummus eaters and all of those things. And that's right from his own mouth. Lastly, I want to talk about two more things here. There was an article a few months ago. This was from, I think, June in Times of Israel. And this was just a blog, somebody from the outside. This is not Times of Israel paid writer. The guy's name is Jonathan Shabbat, and he is from Israel, but he grew up in the Netherlands. Obviously, he speaks English quite well. And his whole article here is defending that Tucker Carlson is not anti-Semite. And basically what he's doing is what a lot of people try to do, and they're just saying, well, he does this and he does that, but if you listen to him, he's only talking about Israel. He's not talking about Jews, and he's segregating them, blah, blah, blah. And as we know, it's very hard to segregate, Jews from Israel. Although, there are times that you can, and there are times to say, all right, I don't support that even as a Jew. And not everything is done in the Jew's name, and sometimes it's just done in Israel's name. All right, that's fine. I'm okay with that. But Tucker last week on the you know who Dave Smith is, the comedian Dave Smith, who's all over the podcast these days as though he's an expert on Israel and the war and all these things. And of course, he's Jewish, and he talks against Israel all the time. And it's amazing that he's even Jewish. And to me, he's just a useful idiot on these podcasts. And I don't think that these people really respect him for his opinions. He thinks he's a deep thinker, and now he wants to debate Ben Shapiro, which I don't think I think that Ben Shapiro would clean the floor with him. He's just not that bright. He's just not. I think he's a moron, useful idiot. And if you listen to him on all sorts of things, he's on a podcast today with trigonometry, and they take him to task. And, again, I think trigonometry can wipe David off the floor. Anyway, a week ago, Monday or Tuesday, Tucker was on Dave's podcast, and this was right after the brouhaha with Nick Fuentes, and then Thursday with Heritage and Kevin Roberts, and all that stuff had happened. So this was with that in the background, and Tucker is talking and saying his stuff. And if you want to watch it, you can find it on YouTube, or you can find it on X. And at 54 minutes and 57 minutes and 54 seconds, he said, let me set the scene. You have Dave Smith just sitting there nodding, not acknowledging anything, not saying anything, because he's an idiot. And Tucker says this: they support Israel. And he had been talking about Ted Cruz, Lindsey Graham, Ben Shapiro, Seth Dillon, and I think one more. And I'm not sure exactly who he was saying, or if he was just lumping everybody together. It was a little hard to figure out exactly who he was accusing of this. Actually, I think it applies to all of them. He says they support Israel because of the thrill they feel killing their enemies, the godlike power they imagine they have when they extinguish human life. That's the whole game for them. So that's either Israel supporters or Jews. I'm not, it can apply to anybody, but I think it is one of the most disgusting, vile statements to ever come out of Tucker. And of course, Dave Smith just bounces his head along, doesn't say a word about it because he didn't catch it. And I don't think a lot of other people originally caught it either. And now it's starting to be shared on X. And I just think this is just so anti-Semitic and so anti-Israel. And just a disgusting thing to say in general, no matter against any group of people that say that the thrill they feel killing their enemies and the godlike power they imagine that they have when they extinguish human life. It's just disgusting. So there you have it. I just wanted to share with you my feelings about Tucker and about what we're seeing people say. I didn't even want to get into it with Megyn Kelly. I didn't show you Ben Shapiro because we know that Ben Shapiro is out there right now attacking Tucker legitimately and saying how he gets away with it. And actually, I think Ben, if you want to watch Ben's talk after the Nick Fuentes also, he's wearing a suit jacket. He also did one the next day after that one where he's wearing a brown jacket. I'm just saying this so if you're looking at YouTube or you're looking at X, you can see which one it was. The one I'm referring to was he was wearing a jacket, and he really goes point by point why Tucker is an anti-Semite and all the things that he has been doing. Last but not least, last Saturday, there was a gala in LA for PragerU, and Douglas Murray spoke at it. And Douglas Murray made a point to talk about Tucker's anti-Semitism, and that if you read the teachings of John Paul II or Ratzinger, or I think it was John Paul I also, way back, that you would read that the church does not believe in. And we know that in Vatican II that they took it away about Jews killing Christ, and that is not part of their dialogue anymore. Yet you have Tucker, saying that the Jews killing Christ and that's a heresy, and that's not what he's supposed to be talking about, and that's not what Catholics believe. And that whole thing has been debunked by not just Catholics but across the board. I suppose just about across the board. But anyway, Douglas Murray took him to task for that, saying he should know better. He's a smart enough guy, and he should know what these people are thinking. And that what Tucker is doing is vile, is just vile. So there you have it. So I hope this was valuable. I hope I brought you some insight. And please like and subscribe this video so I can continue to grow this channel. Check me out on X. It's at Thinking Clearly, but the second L is a 1 because I couldn't get the name with the second L in it. And Substack occasionally I've been writing, and we'll be doing more. So thank you again, and like and subscribe, and I'll see you on the next one. Bye-bye.